At the age of 7, my parents divorced, and I had a hard time with that. My mom met a feller. I was 9, she married him, and he adopted me and my sister at the age of 10. And he moved us from Cameron, Missouri, out to a little town out by St. Louis, Missouri. And that's where I was saved at. And he got another job when started my freshman year, we moved back out to Sabetha, Kansas. And they plugged into a pretty good church there. And I didn't fit in with the crowd. I didn't fit in with the jocks. I didn't play ball. I didn't play sports. And academically, I hated school, to be honest with you. Just downright hated school. So I hung with the wrong crowd. I was a Christian. I didn't do much drinking, didn't do any drugs at that time. And a guy moved into school, his name was Marty. And he and I become really close friends. And he drank and did all the drugs. And, because I was hanging with him, everybody thought, you're doing drugs, Dave. My mom and my stepdad set me down one night and just blatantly accused me of doing drugs. We know, Dave, you're doing drugs 100%. I'm like, Mom, I'm not doing no drugs. Ain't never been. I've seen them. I just stay away from them. She didn't believe me. And about 2 weeks later, I was riding with Marty, and he pulled a hooter out, and he fired that thing up, and there was a lady sitting behind him. I don't even remember who it was. And he went to pass that joint to her, and I took it from his hand. I took my very first drag off of weed, and that started a 28-year drug addiction, very heavy drug addiction as I got into my adult life. And that was pretty dramatic change in my life. So I graduated by the skin of my teeth, and my parents and my stepdad moved here to Kansas City. And he was going to go, or he did go to Calvary Bible College to be a minister, is what he wanted to be. And he did the 4 years there. Well, I moved down to Emporia for a little while with my sister and started drinking pretty heavily. And I moved away from there because that was bad news. I was kind of getting mixed in with some crowds I really shouldn't have been with. And so I moved to Kansas City and got a job as an aide here in Harrisonville, actually. And met a lady there, met a woman. Her daughter was single, so I started dating this little girl. We only known each other about 3 months, and I married her. And that was a mistake, hindsight. At that time, I hadn't really been smoking a lot of weed, but as that marriage progressed, I really started smoking pretty heavily, and I mean 2 ounces a week, pretty heavily. I had my own moving company at that time, and I was a little before, or a little after. But we divorced. I found out she was cheating on me, so we divorced. And this whole time, that first part of my marriage, anytime there was rough spots, my relationship with Christ wasn't there. I didn't have a rock. I wasn't standing on him as a rock. So I was a yo-yo, up and down. Anytime I'd have a bad problem, I was down. I went, hey, Jesus, I need your help. Mom. I was always going back to Mom. I was riding my mom's salvation is basically what I was doing. I was trying to get her approval is what I was really trying to do. But we got divorced, and unbeknownst to me, it was a New Year's Eve, and I showed up to a party with a friend of mine in the same complex as she lived in, and I got hammered that night, and she showed up. And I don't remember the night. All I know is I produced a kid that night, which is awesome. So we went to Calvary. Mom set us up with going to Calvary for counseling, trying to get back together, and we did. And the only thing that counselor hammered into us is we need to remarry. You need to remarry. So I did marry her. And I was standing at a church, and I watched her walk down the aisle, and the only thing I could think through my mind was, you are making the biggest mistake of your life. But I just followed through and just continued with that marriage for about another 2.5 years. And, the whole time my addiction, you don't think of it. It's just, it was a habit. It was like me smoking my cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes at that time, and it was just, something to do. And never really thought of it as an addiction. I always told I can quit anytime. So I found out she was cheating on me again. I separated from her, and I had my own moving company. I just moved all my stuff out, just moved into a house. And we got divorced, and I was living in Grandview with a friend of mine, and he moved on. But I met my wife. I had a dog, and she's a vet tech, so I met her. And just asked her out on a date. I didn't want nothing. I didn't need nothing. I just wanted something to do. Just a friend at that time, because I was pretty lonely. And she's been with me ever since. But about 5-6 years later, we married. Something like that. Anyway, in 2000, I don't remember, 2002, my mom had cancer. And 2003, she had ovarian cancer, and they cured her of that. 2008, she and I started driving out on the road, and I still smoking pot like a freight train, and I started driving. You can't smoke dope and drive a semi, period. I mean, they pull drug randoms on you like it's going out of style. I was at JB Hunt a total of 3 months, and they pulled a hair random on me, and that was into that job, instantly gone. Driving career pretty much over with, JB Hunt didn't report it, so I got thankful on that one. And I went back to a local trash company, worked for them for a little while, but 2008, I hired onto a place called Grondike hauling gasoline and chemicals and stuff, and I was out on the road. And I should back up. At the point of the last month I was at JB Hunt, I was able to lead my wife to Christ. I was sitting in Ohio somewhere, a little truck stop, and she started asking, and I was one of those times of the yo-yo. I was in Christ at that time, and was able to lead my wife to Christ. Yeah, amen. And 2008, I was sitting outside of London, Ohio, and Mom called me and told me her cancer's back. And, that was pretty hard, really. Cured of ovarian cancer. 5 years later, it's back. So they chemoed her. First time they didn't run chemo on her. Second time they ran chemo on her. The chemo is what killed my mom. Chemo gave my mom leukemia. 1 in like 570,000 people get leukemia out of this chemo. My mom was the one. And still, that increased my drug habit because I was stressed at that time pretty bad. All I could think about was getting home to my family and smoking dope the whole time. And I get home, I'd smoke, whatever. 2015, I hired onto a company called Heritage Transport, picking up waste, waste, all over the United States. And 2015, November 12th, November 11th, my mom was in pretty bad shape at that time. They blanked her system out. They gave her everything you can give somebody. Veterans Day, I get a phone call. I'm leaving for Indianapolis Veterans. I leave for Indianapolis. I get a phone call from my brother-in-law. They put your mom on hospice, but she's doing okay. All right, I'll see her tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. I never saw my mom again. The following year, I'm still driving for Heritage. My drug addiction has gotten so bad at this time. They're sending me to Colorado. You can buy all the weed you want in Colorado anytime, anywhere. They don't care. I'm in a semi buying weed, smoking weed, driving a semi. That's how bad my addiction had gotten, especially after my mom died. And then they sent me down. We was picking this stuff called AFFF up. And they sent me down to South Texas. I met this fella named Pete. And he was a Christian. He was prison ministries, really nice guy. I kind of talked to him, and I still hadn't been in the Word at all. And I left, came home, and they turned me around 2 weeks later, and I should not have went that route. They diverted me back down to him. And I get down there, I pick up again, and Pete and I are really having a discussion. He's really drilling me, not really drilling, but he's telling me, about Christ. And I didn't think much about it. I went up to Laughlin, picked up at Laughlin, and I'm headed home, This feller calls me about 5:30 at night and said, God told me to call you, Dave. He's like, I want to pray for you. Now, why did that man call me? Why? Why is he praying for me? I had no clue. So I get home. I don't think nothing about it. Following month, I get out to Oregon, and I pick up 2 tickets. I was running 15 mile an hour over and not maintaining my lane. For a truck driver, that's devastating. They took my license away from me for that for 60 days. April 23rd of 2017, they took my license away. In March, end of March, a buddy of mine called me, and this is what started my walk with Christ. My buddy called me. He goes, you believe in God? Yes, sir. Why? Why do you believe in God? Because he's searching. And I'm like, I don't know why. So I kind of start digging into the Word, and they suspend my license, and that first week of suspension, I started going to church. It was Easter Sunday. I told my wife I wasn't going back to church on Easter Sunday because I didn't want to be a hypocrite. You go to church enough, you see Easter Sunday, the place is stinking packed. I didn't want to be that Christian. She's like, no, we need to go. You got to start sometime. Okay, baby, we'll go. So we go to church that week. I start my suspension the Friday before. And God tells me, he goes, I want to help you through this, but you got to do something for me. I was like, what's that, He's like, you're going to give your addiction up. You've had it long enough. All the times before when I'd quit, I'd take my pipe and I'd take my grinder and I'd take my stuff and I'd stuff it somewhere. I'll never touch it again. Psh. That's a lie. That stuff comes out pretty quick. And God's like, no, you ain't going to just hide your stuff this time. You're going to throw it away. So I get home, take my daughter to school. I get home, very first week we have a new son. I get home, and the trash normally runs at our house pretty early, like 7 o'clock. Trash is picked up. Trash ain't picked up today. Okay, well, I'll take it out there, God. So I put all my stuff in there, and I clean my Frisbee off, and I'm like, I'll keep my Frisbee. And then God's like, no, all of it. So I put it all in there. Pipe, vape, I had everything. You name it, I had it. I put it all in the trash bag, and I walk it out there to the trash. And I put it in the trash. I no sooner got through the door than the trash man came up, picked the trash up. God didn't even give me an opportunity to think about it. He's like, it's done. So I had issues quitting by myself. Satan is a very wise man, very wise, wiser than I'll ever be. And I don't give him credit. He's just truth. So every time I felt the need for my addiction to smoke, especially in that first 60 days, I'd be like, Satan would come knocking, and he knocks hard. And I'd be like, Jesus, you've got to answer that door. And as soon as I gave that to Christ, every time he'd take that instantly, gone, done. Next time. So them 60 days, I dove into my Bible, dove into it hard. I'd never read my Bible. I'm still not completely through my Bible. 46 years old, I hadn't read my Bible. Been in church all my life. I ain't read my Bible. Hadn't read my Bible at all until then. And them 60 days, I learned a lot. I learned how to get rid of an addiction, and the only way I was able to do that is through Jesus Christ, because he's the one that took it from me. He'd come knocking. I'd be like, Jesus, take that. Please take that. And he did. And I'm very thankful he did. I don't have that addiction anymore. I went out on the road again for another year, and then not too long ago, I was able to come home, and God gave me a job at home, and that's a wonderful thing. So that's my testimony.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sister Jill. Yeah. I was going to turn this one on too. You can interfere.